So today, we're diving into something called psychoanalytic criticism. And what that really is a way of reading stories that treats them less like simple entertainment and more like, well, like dreams written down on a page, just packed with hidden meanings and secret desires that are waiting for us to unlock them.
I mean, you know that feeling, right? You wake up, your heart might be pounding a little, and you've just had this dream that was totally bizarre, maybe a little intense, and you're just left thinking, what in the world was that all about? Well, that exact question, that's really at the heart of how we're going to look at literature today.
And look, this isn't just some random thought we have. This feeling is totally universal. We seem to have this deep-seated instinct that these weird narratives bubbling up from our subconscious might actually hold some fundamental truth about who we are. And for some people, those truths can be incredibly powerful.
And this isn't just some abstract idea, right? This stuff has had huge real-world impact. Take the chemist Auguste Kekule. He famously figured out the structure of the benzene molecule, a massive scientific breakthrough after having a dream about a snake eating its own tail. Or the composer Giuseppe Tartini, who wrote his most incredible piece after dreaming that the devil himself played it for him on the violin. Dreams can be the source of genuine creation.
Now, the framework we're using to navigate all this comes from Charles Bressler's An Introduction to Literary Theory. It's what gives us the tools to take that same curious lens we use on our own dreams and turn it toward the books we read. So, let's start with the guy who pretty much kicked this whole thing off.
Right. You absolutely cannot talk about interpreting dreams without talking about the pioneer himself, Sigmund Freud. And for what we're doing here, let's think of him as the guy who suggested that every author has a kind of silent partner, an unconscious co-author.
So Freud's huge, game-changing idea was this concept of the unconscious. The best way to picture it is like an iceberg. The little tip that you see above the water, that's your conscious mind. But the massive, vast part submerged underneath, that's the unconscious. It's the part we can't see, but it's where all our deepest, most powerful stuff is stored. Our fears, our secret desires, our repressed memories, and it's constantly shaping everything we do. And to map out this inner world, Freud came up with a model with three main players who are pretty much always in conflict. First, you've got the id. This is your primal, instinctual side. It's the part that just wants what it wants, right now. Then you have the superego, which is basically your inner critic, your conscience, all the rules you've learned from society. And stuck right in the middle, that's the ego, the negotiator who's desperately trying to make the id happy without breaking all the superego's rules. And all this internal fighting, it leads to some of Freud's most famous, and, let's be honest, controversial theories, like the Oedipus complex. It's a perfect example of those deep, unconscious, and often socially forbidden desires that Freud believed really shape who we are from a very, very young age.
Okay, so here's the crucial link for us. Freud believed that a work of literature is basically a manifestation of the author's own unconscious mind. The story itself becomes a safe space where forbidden wishes can be acted out in disguise and where those epic battles between the id, ego, and superego get played out through the characters and the plot.
But of course, Freud was just the beginning. His ideas were so revolutionary, they became a launching pad for other thinkers who took his work and just ran with it, sometimes in completely new directions. Two of the most important were Carl Jung and Jacques Lacan, who took Freud's basic ideas and drew entirely new maps of our inner worlds. And this quote from Carl Jung really says it all, doesn't it? Jung was once Freud's hand-picked successor, his star student. But he eventually realized he couldn't just stay a pupil forever. He had to break away and develop his own unique ideas about the mind. So what was the big difference? Well, for Freud, the unconscious was always personal. It was a locked box of your individual memories and repressed feelings. But Jung, he proposed something way bigger, way more grand, a collective unconscious. He argued that we are all born with a shared psychic inheritance, a kind of mental blueprint built from the accumulated experiences of all human beings ever.
And what's inside this collective unconscious? Archetypes. You can think of them as the original blueprints for our ideas. Universal patterns like the hero, the wise old sage, the trickster, the shadow self. These are the characters and symbols that show up again and again in myths, legends, and stories from every single culture throughout history. So, for a Jungian critic, literature is where these ancient universal archetypes come alive.
And then there was Jacques Lacan, who took these ideas and really turned things on their head in a famously complex way. His most central claim is a total mindbender. The unconscious isn't a place full of hidden feelings, but a system that works just like a language.
Okay, so what on earth does that actually mean?
Well, for Lacan, the whole idea that you have a single, stable, unified self is basically an illusion. He argued that deep down, we're all just a fragmented, chaotic bundle of desires. It's only when we learn language that we try to stitch some kind of coherent identity together. So for a Lacanian critic, a story doesn't reveal some hidden truth about the author. It reveals the gaps and the failures in language itself, all the places where words fail to capture what we really want.
Whew, okay, so we've got these three incredible thinkers and their really complex maps of the mind. So how does a regular reader actually use all this to look at a book? What are the ground rules for playing this game?
Well, if you're going to use this lens, you have to start with a few core assumptions. First, you treat the text like it's a dream, filled with symbols and hidden meanings. You assume the author's own psychology, their own baggage, is baked right into the work. And this part is really important. You have to admit that your own psychology as the reader is going to shape how you interpret it all. The text basically becomes this incredible puzzle, just waiting for you to unlock it.
But of course, no theory is perfect, and it's really important to talk about the critiques. A lot of people argue that this approach just isn't scientific. It's all interpretation. There's nothing objective about it. Others point out that its Freudian roots can make it pretty male-centric. And maybe the biggest criticism is that it can reduce a beautiful, complex work of art to just a simple psychological case study of the author's issues. These are all really valid points to keep in mind.
All of which leaves us with one last, big, provocative question. If we accept the premise that stories are like dreams and that they rise up from the deepest, most hidden parts of an author's mind, then does that mean every novel, every poem, every play is, in the end, a kind of confession? It's definitely something to think about the next time you get lost in a good book.